Hey guys, welcome to round one of the Liberty Garden doubleheader today. I'm Regina Angley, joined by Justin Carris. Super excited for you guys. We've got Vega and James Evans for you guys for this round one.
Yeah, we got two really strong players, both local region, people that have been, familiar to the Liberty Garden stream before. Players that, have quite the bit of accolades. James is a former world champion in the seniors division, which totally counts. And we have Will Vega, who is a Philly local who's been, in plenty of local cuts and stuff like that. So very excited to get into this match. Both people that, I don't know how many times they've played in tournament before, but James is one of the stronger players in our region. I'm excited to see how he's going to play this.
Yeah, I know that he's super into his hamster right now. He was telling us about it earlier. We were like, what do you want us to talk about? He goes, can you talk about my hamster? He's so cute. It's a dwarf hamster. But really kind of excited because this is also the first weekend that some new Pokemon are going to be legal as well. So some abilities that are coming up soon. So maybe we'll see some of those. But curious to see what their teams are going to be, and we'll have those for you on screen very soon as we get into it.
Yeah, the introduction of Pokemon Home has brought a bunch of new abilities. Specifically, one of our friends here on the desk here might actually be something we see a little bit of. Absent in the metagame before getting access to Friend Guard, but now that it's here, I'd love to see if somebody brought a creative team involving it.
I mean, Friend Guard, Life Do, you've got Clefairy able to just be like, oh, I'll stand here, protect my friends, and heal them up for later on. And it's nice to hopefully be able to see it this weekend, seeing as it is the mascot for Liberty Garden. And I don't know, like, seeing everything happen in the previous tournaments so far with things like Togekiss and Rhyperior and all those Pokemon being super popular, I want to see how like the new abilities are going to affect those popularity now.
Yeah, I think that Clefairy is one of the Pokemon that, with the change over to the new Dynamax mechanic, it's a little bit harder to use because when you have a support Pokemon like Togekiss that at least have the mix-up of going for, Dynamax.
And we will have those names switched in just a bit. But for you guys, we have James sending out Rotom and Togekiss as the lead of choice, and Will is actually going to be going with Togekiss and Excadrill. So we've got double the Fairy and Flying types here for you.
And a shiny Excadrill at that, too. I really like the lead here from James. Togekiss, Excadrill, super strong. You have the pressure of something like a Swords Dance and a Follow Me, but also you have another set of pressure with Togekiss's ability to possibly go for something like a Max Airstream. There's so much variance in what they can do in that lead. But I do like that Will was... That was actually my bad. That was on Will's side. I'm sorry. The names are switched. The Rotom Heat, though, still offering pressure against both of these Pokemon. And as we were talking about before, having access to Dynamax means that at any moment it could possibly, get real big and go for a nice large attack.
Oh, but we've got James withdrawing that Rotom, actually, and is going to be sending out Hitmontop instead, so going to get an Intimidate into both these Pokemon. A little more important on that Excadrill. Togekiss not really well known for its high attack here, so that Rotom's going to be saved back. But also a switch on Will's side, going to take out that Togekiss for a Tyranitar, so going to help out that Excadrill with that Sandstream ability, going to bring in the Sandstorm, get that residual damage at the end of every turn, but more importantly, helping out that Excadrill the most here.
Yeah, getting access to the Sand Rush, and we're going to see a Dynamax too come out here. I think that is going to be on Will's side. I'm assuming that Will is actually going for the Dynamax into the Excadrill here, which prevents him from the ability to go for something like a Swords Dance. And now that an Intimidate was just dropped into your Dynamax option, your stats are reduced, so the output from here is going to be a lot lower.
Yeah, a big Excadrill on that first turn. Actually, another Dynamax as well from James, so going to be that Togekiss because that Hitmontop did just switch in. So 2 Pokemon that are very familiar to people being Dynamax, and actually either one of those Pokemon could be carrying something like a weakness policy as well.
And that's really the cool thing about Togekiss is even though it offers that pressure of Follow Me, at any point could possibly just gun for it and go for the offense right away.
Ooh, Max Rockfall again at -1 here thanks to that earlier Intimidate. Gonna go into that Hitmontop, which takes it very nicely, much better than that Rotom Heat would have here. And a Life Orb from that Excadrill losing some HP here. Max Airstream from Togekiss gonna go into that Tyranitar that also just switched in, but more importantly is gonna give a +1 speed to both Hitmontop and Togekiss.
Yeah, and while it looks like, both of the players made really great defensive switches, I really do think that James came out on top here. He has the speed boost on both of his Pokemon, meaning that Hitmontop is actually now faster than that Tyranitar, guaranteed, unless it's a Choice Scarf. And getting the Intimidate down onto the Excadrill means that the Dynamax option on Will's side is now not creating, it's 0.67 times the output of a Dynamax Pokemon, which is kind of very essential to your game plan. That's 3 turns of value that, are kind of essentially being turned into almost 2.
Yeah, it's rough when you choose this Pokemon to Dynamax, you get intimidated, and if you choose to want to reset that, you sacrifice those Dynamax turns, which obviously are the important mechanic here. But Max Steel Spike from Excadrill going into the Hitmontop again, instead of that Togekiss, does pick up the knockout on Hitmontop, but also raises the defense of both Excadrill and Tyranitar. Those secondary moves, secondary effects, again, really important for these Dynamax moves, and we do see another HP drop from that Life Orb. But Max Flare going into Excadrill, super effective damage here, and almost gets it into the red, but not quite. Will change the weather though, which is the more important thing here for that Togekiss. Going to bring out the sun as opposed to that Sandstorm, as Rock Slide as single target here does a lot of damage into Togekiss.
Policy.
And there we go, that weakness policy activating, giving a +2 to special attack and attack. That Togekiss is a big egg that is more terrifying than it was before.
Yeah, that's really huge for James. I really like the way he played that turn. Knowing that Togekiss can always kind of have that policy option is scary, but I do like that he was able to get the knockout into Hitmontop from Will. The only problem is that he's now giving a free switch into the Excadrill, which, the board position here from James is just, terrifying. He can go for another Max Airstream and get his Excadrill already to +1 and probably benefiting from the same Sand Rush. That means that it'll be almost essentially game unless he can, maybe make a comeback with a Togekiss in the back. But when you think about it, if you look at everything on Will's side, almost everything is weak to that Excadrill that could possibly come in.
And Tyranitar on Will's side going to be switching out on this turn, as Whimsicott being revealed to be the last Pokemon on Will's side coming into the field. And Excadrill also using Max Guards to taking that last Dynamax turn to protect itself, doesn't want to get knocked out. But Togekiss goes for the Max Airstream, goes into that Whimsicott spot, does reveal the Focus Sash here on Will's Whimsicott, but like you said, does get that +1 to speed for the Excadrill and for Togekiss, so having that Tyranitar come back in later will benefit James's Excadrill more here, as Excadrill uses Earthquake from James's side, is going to knock out that that Whimsicott that had just come in, and we are just going to see that Tyranitar come back in that next turn.
Yeah, and getting that Airstream speed boost into the Excadrill was super important for the end game here, because now even though Sand will be coming back in for Will, James's Excadrill also benefits with Sand Rush and is at +1 speed, so it wild speed everything on the field. And then from there's not much that you can do against a +2 Togekiss and an Excadrill at +1. So
we're going to see these Dynamax turns, and then it is that Togekiss instead. My bad on that one, but we've got a sort of mirror here. The scary part is James is at +2 on that Togekiss, and at least a +1 on that Excadrill. So mirrored Pokemon, but not quite so in stats or HP.
Yeah, if the Togekiss has something like a Babiri Berry to reduce an Iron Head damage, then he might be able to get the, a Heat Wave off or something like that. But, the Air Slash is going to do a significant chunk to the Togekiss.
Yep, and now we've got that Excadrill on James' side going for the Earthquake, and be faster than Will's Excadrill, and is able to pick up the knockout on Will's Excadrill. Is going to like just knock it out, and we're gonna see that Tyranitar as Togekiss from Will's side is gonna use Heat Wave, so hits both, picks up the knockout actually on James's. Oh, it was to say it sounds like a critical hit, and it is, as that does get knocked out. You can see James just not liking that at all. So we are gonna see Togekiss and Rotom Heat versus Togekiss and Tyranitar.
Yeah, I don't know how offensively trained that Togekiss actually was. Being that it is in the sun, there's a chance that the critical hit may have not mattered, but now it's looking a little bit more doable. If this Tyranitar is bulky enough, it might be able to get a Rock Slide off and possibly secure the game. I don't know if that was just maybe a miscue from James there, but the Togekiss having access to Heat Wave was a significant threat, and I do think he should have addressed it. I don't know that his Rotom Heat is going to be able to get knocked out in time, but Tyranitar being in the back actually was a really smart endgame play there from Will.
This is one of those moments where you think to yourself, oh no, I set up the weather and it benefited my opponent more than myself, because like you said, that Heat Wave being boosted by that sun, as Togekiss on Will's side is going for the follow me, going to draw all the attacks from James's Pokemon, and Dazzling Gleam though, not going to matter for that because it is a spread move, hits both Pokemon, picks up, oh, that is a lot of damage on Tyranitar, does activate a weakness policy as well, and knocks out the Togekiss, but that Tyranitar, as long as it can hit a Rock Slide,
I think that it's going to be faster and it's going to knock it out, yeah. That's one of those things where like Tyranitar actually doesn't have a high enough speed stat to really compete with these two Pokemon on the field. That's one of the things that I've actually really liked the way the metagame has shaped up, is that a lot of things are kind of, either are you hitting the Arcanine speed, or are you going to just try and outspeed some of the faster Togekiss? And Rotom is just one of those Pokemon that has kind of enough of a raw base speed where it can kind of compete with all of those speed tiers outside of the Arcanine range. So having James set that up for the late game was really smart. Obviously, I think the only real big downfall in Will's game plan there was he activated the weakness policy on the Togekiss. Maybe a little bit too soon. A lot of times what you want to do is you want to be able to hit the Togekiss a little bit more neutrally. The problem is he obviously had tools out on the field that weren't able to do that effectively. I mean, you can't go for a Crunch or a Max Quake into a Togekiss. Everything that he would have gone for would have been super effective.
Yeah. And I think it's unfortunate because it's one of those things where if you're Will, now your Tyranitar is revealed to be weakness policy, and so you can just look out for that later. But I think in terms of their team matchups, right, like how do you address game 2? Because their couple of turn ones were really interesting in terms of they switched out a lot, and both the Pokemon that they switched out were the ones that they targeted for each other, right? It was never their Dynamax Pokemon until I think turn 3. So again, on
when it comes to a Sand Mirror, you need the speed advantage. So what he chose to do was get the speed advantage with his Togekiss, and even though Excadrill does, is weak against itself, as long as it's fast enough, even if it Dynamaxes, it's going to do more than half with an Earthquake. But obviously the leads here are going to reflect that.
Yeah, so James choosing to lead again with Togekiss and Rotom Heat, and we've got Will bringing in that Galistopod and the Whimsicott. I'm really excited. This is, again, quite the impression it's making.
Will's kind of making a read here, thinking, all right, I don't know that a Gastrodon is going to be coming. It wasn't really, conducive to James's game plan there, so actually making an adjustment and going for Galistopod is super impressive in my opinion. But the problem is I don't know if he has enough output to actually, bully his way through a Dynamax Togekiss. So even though this situation looks a little bit better for him, he still might have to deal with that Dynamaxing Togekiss and might lose his Galistopod turn 1.
And much like in Game 1, we've got James withdrawing that Rotom Heat, brings in the Hitmontop and gets an Intimidate into both Pokemon. Whimsicott, being a Pokemon known for its setup, is not going to care about that at all. And we do see the Dynamax again. So, like you had said, Togekiss here is a really important Pokemon to Dynamax because it's just going to be really hard to kind of get through. And again, having that weakness policy is something you just don't want to activate.
Yeah, and I do like that Will is thinking about what I was mentioning before. You want to try and be able to hit it with moves that are neutral damage, but I don't know that he's going to be able to even get an attack off before this Togekiss does what it needs to do, which is get an Airstream.
Yeah, and Whimsicott doing what it does best, setting up the Tailwind for that speed on Will's side, as Liquidation is going to be the move of choice here from Will's Galistopod. Goes into that Hitmontop, does some okay damage here, but Togekiss is free to use Max Airstream into that Galistopod, knocks it out quite easily, and again, gets that +1 speed for itself and for Hitmontop.
Yeah, and now, even though this kind of looks like that turn 1 went poorly for Will, he has the ability to bring in a Pokemon that could Dynamax, and he'll have the Tailwind speed advantage. That's one of the things that kind of is a little bit tricky about Tailwind. You don't want to give your opponent a free switch. He gets to go right into Excadrill and possibly double down into that Togekiss, and that might be able to secure him enough of a position that he can, maybe even clean up from there. If he has something like a Tyranitar on the back, the Hitmontop obviously scares that away, but I think that protecting the Whimsicott for whatever it needs to do, if maybe even, set up a second Tailwind towards the end of the game, I don't know that he has any way to boost the Excadrill's attack stat here, and I know for a fact that if he goes for a Steel Spike, it won't actually knock that Togekiss out, and then it'll activate its weakness policy and make it almost impossible to stop.
The nice thing here, though, is at least that Excadrill isn't intimidated like it was in Game 1, but Togekiss coming into place for that Whimsicott, so one fairy for another, as James is actually going to withdraw his own Hitmontop here and go for the Rotom instead, so we're seeing Rotom a lot earlier than
Did he Swords Dance? He might have Swords Dance.
Oh, no, he's actually going for Dynamax instead, so no Swords Dance. But again, non-intimidated, which I think is why James had switched that out to save that for later, just in case.
Yeah, smart play, especially there. Getting off the Dynamax here, pretty much the situation I was just talking about. He might actually go for something like a Max Quake to try and, boost his Excadrill special defense. But I think James is obviously adapting to all of those options and getting his Rotom Heat out there to possibly defend against that.
Oh, a Max Steel Spike straight into a Max Guard from James's Togekiss. So one of those moves that I think is very rare to see Dynamax Pokemon use, going for the Max Guard.
I think that the Togekiss coming in here is actually super good. If he has access to Helping Hand, he might be able to get the knockout on this Togekiss right away. And that could be huge for the endgame, but I think that the problem is that James switched out his Hitmontop. He might be able to bring it right back in, drop that Intimidate down onto it, and then prevent him from getting that knockout. And just the thought of that even being a play is super problematic for how you would deal with something like a Dynamax Togekiss. Another thing is that he also went for the Dynamax a turn later than the Togekiss did, so he has the ability to, and it went for Max Guard, so he might be able to get 2 more extra value turns out of his Excadrill than James will get out of his Togekiss.
And James is trying that Rotom, so we might see that him on top. Yep, it's coming in for that Intimidate. It is one of those things where, like, hey, that Excadrill is terrifying, and we need some ways to make sure that it doesn't hit as hard as it can. So Intimidate going to drop it down an attack stage for that Excadrill. Are we going to see the help? No Helping Hand though from that Togekiss or Follow Me, as Max Quake is going to go into that Hitmontop. So is going to lose Hitmontop, but at least manage to get that -1 onto that Excadrill.
That was also an incredible play there. If you noticed, he switched out a Rotom Heat into a Hitmontop and he Max Quaked it. Will Vega showing that tri-state
He's like, I'm going to do this.
prowess. Obviously, that's a Justin Carris play. Thank you.
And
Thank
also
you, Will.
Gets that critical hit with the Dazzling Gleam into the Dynamax Togekiss and goes for that Max Flare into Excadrill. That special defense going to come in handy here.
Will, your brain is huge, my friend.
Justin is a huge fan of this, as we do have that Sun coming back in, which, again, Will does have a Heat Wave on his Togekiss, so could come in handy for him later.
Yeah, the problem is that the Rotom Heat is going to be really hard to deal with without with a -1 Excadrill and without being able to use that last max turn. Like, if James goes for something like a Protect here or even a Follow Me, which he might have access to, then the Rotom Heat is going to kind of get by scot-free. And I don't know that Will has a way to boost his Excadrill's attack, so the position that he's in with a Golisopod and being gone and Whimsicott in the back, I don't know if he even has the tools to finish off this game plan. So James is just going to kind of have to roll with the pieces that he has. He has the speed boost on his Togekiss. The weakness policy hasn't been activated yet, but if it doesn't have something like a Protect, then Will might be free to actually just go right for the Max Steel Spike into the Togekiss and get it off the field before it's able to do anything. He does also run the risk, though, of being hit by a Fire move with the Rotom Heat, so he has to probably do something like Follow Me with the Togekiss here. And
it's going to be, that Follow Me from Togekiss. They're going to draw the Heat away from Excadrill. Hopefully going to be able to at least, get some Max Rockfall here into that the Rotom Heat, and it's just a clean knockout there. Gets another special defense boost for the team for its troubles. Also gets a critical hit. Again, that is one of those rough moments here. Sorry, it brings up Sandstorm, not that special defense. And Rotom does get knocked out, and that Togekiss is going to be in a bit of trouble for later on, but has Heat Wave on its own, and that Sun getting taken away is really nice here for Will. But again, the special defense boost from earlier is helping him out a lot here.
I hadn't noticed the Life Orb chip earlier, and the Excadrill being able to deal damage like that with Life Orb, I think that critical hit may have not actually mattered, even though it was at -1. That also opens up the play of getting the Excadrill off the field now, possibly setting up a Tailwind, another Tailwind with Whimsicott. they do have one last turn of Tailwind, so the speed advantage is super important here. That's what I was mentioning earlier, where in a Sand Mirror, what you want to do is you want to be able to make sure that your Excadrill has the speed advantage because it will do the most damage to pretty much everything on the other team. It's one of the problems of playing Sand is they actually don't enjoy the mirror too much. But Togekiss also still being able to pressure with Follow Me is super important here. The only thing is that it won't redirect something like an Earthquake if Excadrill does actually have it on James' side.
Yeah, it's almost like Will read your mind and was like, oh no, I do have to have the speed. That's the most important thing here. But Excadrill from James' side gonna get the knockout here on Will's Excadrill. So gonna be Togekiss and Whimsicott versus James' team. As Togekiss goes for the Air Slash into Will's own Togekiss. Does some okay damage here, but Togekiss on Will's side gets the Heat Wave damage. Not enough to pick out any knockouts. It gets another critical hit on that Excadrill.
Holy cow.
I am guessing that is most
Super
likely
Scope Lens.
So that is everybody's new favorite mechanic to use with Togekiss. But Whimsicott and Togekiss, not going to be enough, I think, to just take out either Excadrill or Togekiss on James' side.
I don't know about that one. The problem is that if he has to kind of choose pick his poison here, does he go for the Whimsicott or does he go for the Togekiss? And if Togekiss has something like Protect, he might.
Can just set up Tailwind too.
Yeah, this is a really complex turn here, and I really think that Will probably has the ability to execute it. But what we have to worry about is, can he get the damage off?
There's a Tailwind.
Is it fast enough? I don't know if it's fast enough.
Oh, Excadrill for the Iron-Headed Togekiss, picks up the knockout there, and that's just going to be Whimsicott who set up Tailwind, holding onto a Focus Sash, gets Air Slashed, and is going to not be able to do anything next turn. So. Yeah.
Excellent play there from James. I really got to hand it to him. That was such a smart game plan. And then the last turn, which what I was trying to say was kind of complex, he had the ability to possibly threaten the Excadrill, but he might have not had Protect on his Togekiss, which is going to dictate how Will's able to clean that game up. I really like the play from both of those players. They both brought it to the table. James is a really intense and fierce competitor, and especially being so young, I love seeing that from him. One of my favorite players to watch. He's also a local from about 20 minutes from away where I live, and he came to the last local that we had hosted down there and won, kind of like defending his home court. So he's one of the favorites here at this tournament and did an excellent job, and he'll be brought over to the table for an interview shortly. So
don't go anywhere, guys. Just stay there, and we'll be back soon.
Hello, everybody. My name is Maeve O'Rourke. I am here with James Evans, who just won your round one today. So, James, first off, I want to talk about a play that was really interesting to me. Was where you swapped your Hitmontop out and brought that, or swapped your Rotom Heat out into the Hitmontop to get that Intimidate off, which took a Max Quake.
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit about your thought process on that play.
Okay, well, I was expecting Max Rockfall, and I figured, like, he didn't have T-Tar, so Rotom was a pretty comfortable, like, endgame answer, like, to Togekiss and Whimsicott, just because they can't really touch it that well. I mean, Togekiss definitely had Scope Lens. It was critting things left and right, so that could have been an issue, but I felt Rotom could have probably pulled it out. I wasn't expecting him to Max Quake. That was a really good play on his end. Like, I still think that was the best play I could have made, because Togekiss wants to survive a hit no matter what, and I didn't want him to be, like, surprise helping hand, knock out my Togekiss, and then I just lose the game from there.
Yeah, how important was swapping out those Intimidates and cycling them in and out in this game, especially with his Excadrill?
Well, like, for most Sandcoms, because, like, they're really scared to hit him on top already. They don't want to face it because it's going to close combat and do stuff to them. Steel Spike helps, but it's still going to do a lot of damage. So you can kind of, like, threaten them with just that, but also the Intimidate and having another attacker on the field and Weakness Policy Togekiss to take advantage of, like, him on top scaring off things, having a fake out user, having a support in that fighting type really helps.
I think one thing, too, that was really important was just weather control throughout that game, whether keeping up a Max Flare or a Max Rockfall, having the sun or the sand. So what do you think, especially in Game 1, when you set up that Max Flare and it allowed him to get that crit with the Heat Wave knocking out both of your Pokemon, like what did your mindset go into with Game 2 in terms of keeping the weather in your favor?
Well, like, all right, so like from Game 1, I figured like him setting up sand's not bad for me because I have my own Excadrill and it can take advantage of that, especially if it outspeeds like it did. So that was good. I really just wanted to get damage off. I was kind of baiting him into going for Steel Spike into my Togekiss, just hoping that he would go for it. Even if he targeted the other slot, I had Rotom and him on top switching in and out to try and cover each other's weaknesses. Because if it Max Quakes, it's not going to do anything, so I'm still doing damage. I was considering last game Max Airstreaming the Togekiss on the turn. He Max Quaked my him on top, but I figured I was like, it's better to just go for this, get the sun up, so that way I can at least Heat Wave after I'm on Dynamaxed. And like Airstream didn't really help because he had Tailwind up, so I figured it was just better to go for that.
Yeah, and I definitely think speed control played a big factor in this game a lot of times, whether it was keeping that Max Rockfall or, you getting your Max Airstreams up along with your Togekiss and boosting it to outspeed his Tailwind or, all of those kind of crazy factors in this game. One other question I want to ask for you as well, kind of just to wrap this up. When you see a team that has something like a Golisopod on it or something that's a little bit unfamiliar, what is your kind of game plan going into something like that?
Okay, so like, obviously you gotta respect it.
Yeah.
Like the Golisopod was there, I was like, this is actually a better lead for him because it ended up letting him get Excadrill in without like him on top threatening it with an Intimidate. Like at the end of the day, you just gotta respect it. If it's gonna start threatening your team, you gotta cover it. But generally, Sand has a lot of anti-gimmicks. It's just pretty clean with how it like plays games, so you can kind of just blow things up no matter what they are. If it's a gimmick, if it's like standard or not. Just don't play Durant. don't play Durant.
All right, guys. If anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it. Shout outs to my hamster.
Great. Shout outs to your hamster. All right, guys. So we're going to wrap up. The analyst desk is going to come in as pretty soon after I sneak out of here. So stay tuned for that.